welcome everybody to our April meeting of New Mexicans for Science and Reason. And we're fortunate to have speaker Susan Gerbic, who is going to talk about her new adventure. And I don't have the, I do have the, okay. It's called abouttimeproject.org. And she's going to talk about that and her work on scientific skepticism, activism, and combating the grief vampires. So, without further ado, Susan Gerbic.
Thank you so much. Gosh, it's so good to see you guys over there in New Mexico. I really wish I could have come out and talked to you guys, but I guess you're not doing talks in person yet. So
maybe in a month or so. I guess we're just not quite back ready for prime time.
Not quite ready.
But it's getting closer, yeah.
Well, I'm going to be coming by there pretty darn soon in a few weeks. So I'm just flying back from other places. But anyway, so I know that thank you guys for asking me. I know you had a speaker who is not feeling well, so I am your fill-in, and let's hope that you will enjoy that. This talk that I'm about to give is about 40 minutes or so. It's got a lot of different elements to it, and I am not I'm changing around as I go. So let's see what we think. All right. So I am Susan Gerbic. I'm in Salinas, California, and I am a fellow for the Center for Inquiry. I've just received the Balls Award, I guess you would call it, BALLES, for some of the work that I've done in the grief vampire world. And that's where I'm going to be doing a lot of talking tonight. Now, I'm going to give you my website at the beginning, and I'm going to give you the website at the very end. And there's going to be a lot of screens that have like writing on them and stuff. And I want you to just completely ignore the little print. They're not there for you to read. It's just more for you to visualize and look at and say, oh, okay, I see. This is something about this or whatever she's explaining. Try not to read the print. You're not going to be able to read it. It's going to go too fast. What I am going to do is I'm going to give you all the articles, everything. You can look them up later at your leisure. And so hopefully you'll have some questions for me when we get all done. So
yeah, and we post
and it's being recorded. So hello, recorded people.
And we post them on the YouTube for the
future.
YouTube universe. Yeah,
for those people of the future.
There you are.
Hello, people of the future. So let's go over here. I'm going to share the sound. I have one clip that's just very brief. Okay, so I assume you're seeing my screen right now, right?
It's good.
Okay, so this is the organization that I run. It's called About Time, and this is a nonprofit. And you can see that we are quite colorful and fun people, and we have a lot of different things under the umbrella of About Time. So not only are we focused on Wikipedia or psychics or anything of the sort, we have a lot of other things that we're focused on as well. And I'm going to go over just some of the highlights. This talk is called, oh, I've forgotten what I've called it. I've just started naming it. And I think it's called What I Did During the Pandemic. Because during the pandemic here in Salinas, California, we've been locked down just as the same as everybody else was for the past 2 years. And what we're trying to do is some of the skeptic groups really were active, and they were meeting, and they were doing a lot of things online, games and talks. And then there was a lot of skeptic groups that were just completely doing nothing during this time. And a lot of them I don't think may not survive. They've just kind of like, they didn't embrace Zoom. They didn't embrace some of the other activities that can happen on these virtual places. But for those people who did take advantage of it, I think that we're going to come out of this stronger and more creative. And not only did some skeptic groups take advantage of it, but there's an awful lot of predators out there who did take advantage of Zoom. During the pandemic, people are lonely, they're isolated, they're frightened, they have a lot of anxiety. They don't know what's going to happen in the future. They don't know what to expect. They want some sort of miracle fix. And a lot of them turn to the psychic world. And so one of the things that I spend a lot of time in is I and my team, Mark Edward and myself, we spend a lot of time researching and investigating psychics, and then we write about it and we talk about it. So one branch of my group, the About Time, is the Guerrilla Skeptics. And that's where I'm going to focus on at the beginning. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the work we've been doing in GSOW, which is the Wikipedia angle that is not associated with the Guerrilla Skeptics. So as I said, I publish on Skeptical Inquirer, which of course a lot of us do. And Skeptical Inquirer magazine allows me to be able to write about the thoughts I have and some of the investigations I've done. We're hoping that, of course, these articles get picked up and be put into more amazing places and gets the word out, like in Rolling Stone magazine, which Ben Radford just got in. That's so cool. My goal is to get into something like that. That would be great. But during the pandemic, and these articles are on my website that I gave you, and I will give you the link again. And these are some of the articles that some of the things I did during the pandemic with my team. The first one here on the left, this is one I wrote in August of 2020. And this is a phrase that Mark Edward and myself hear all the time. There's no way the psychic could have known that. There's just no way. And then the person gives you all these excuses like, oh, well, my family's not on Facebook, so there's no way they could have known that. Or it was too specific. There's no way the psychic could have known that. And in this article that I wrote, I show there's lots of ways that a psychic would have known that, besides just guessing. Sometimes, human beings are more alike than they are different. And if you are, a statement like, you have a novel in you, there's some story, some great story that you would like to tell, if you could only get the time and sit down and write that book, I know that you have that great story in you, and of course that's relevant to almost everybody. Everybody thinks they probably have some kind of great story that they could tell about themselves or their family member or a friend or something. And that's a common statement, a Barnum statement that kind of applies to everybody. But in the article I wrote, there is no way the psychic could have known. I talk about all the different ways that a psychic could know, and it doesn't have to be on Facebook. It could be a lot of other things. And as you can see here on the picture that is the main picture of the article, these are 3 photographs I had put on Facebook that if you're looking for information in the background of the picture, you can pick up little nuances of who I am as a personality. I mean, just looking at me right now, listening to my voice, judging my age, looking at my jewelry, looking at the background, the way I talk, accents, and so on. That's enough. The psychic could get who are usually very good at cold reading somebody without knowing them. Those actions of things around me is enough for a person with some skill to be able to give you a whole article, a whole bunch of things about you. So there's a lot of ways a person can get information just by looking at you or your background or your photographs that you're putting up on Facebook. This article on the right-hand side, The Abysmal Failure, a Skeptical Psychic Medium Attempts to Read Susan Gerbic. This happened back in September of 2020. A psychic medium, she called herself, this phrase that they use all the time, I'm trying to think what it is evidential medium, because they only use evidence, right? So this evidential medium reached out to me and she says, the reason why you're not a believer is because you've never had a full reading, and you've never had a reading from a real, genuine psychic. And if only you had had a reading from a genuine psychic, you would, blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, great. You can give me a reading, but I want to do it live on Facebook, because I don't want to be accused of editing the video or reporting it wrong if you got some information that was so amazing. So she didn't want to be on Facebook, but what I did is I called her on the telephone and I put my phone on speaker, and then that allowed her to be able to do a reading, and everybody's just looking at my face during the event. She couldn't see me, and well, I guess she could have if she went onto Facebook, but I did a Facebook Live, and it went on for about an hour and a half. It was abysmal, and it was really fascinating because the people who were watching this video, it was, like I said, about an hour and a half, and then we went on for at least another hour discussing it after I hung up the phone with her. It was real interesting, the things that people had picked up on. They're remembering the hits, forgetting the misses, or the way she worded things to be more than, you know, ambiguous. It would mean this or it could mean that. And then of course I responded in a certain way. So just listening to the reading, and the entire reading is available on my website. So if somebody wanted to actually spend time, they could. Then another thing I did during the pandemic is I and all my team, we went over to all the famous known psychics that are out there all around the world, that are the known people. And we visited their Facebook pages, we visited their website, we visited Ticketmaster, we visited all the different places to see if anybody predicted the pandemic. And by that, I meant, I would think that they had, this is June 2020. So I would have thought somebody would have said, if they're genuinely psychic, I would think they would have said, you know, I don't think we should schedule any shows, any live shows from April 2019. What was it? 2019? Gosh, I can't even remember now. When do we have the 2020? Sorry, from April 2020, because I feel this great disturbance in the world, and that we're all going to be shut down for whatever reason. I'm not quite sure, something about a virus or some kind of big disturbance in the world. And so we should probably not bother setting up any kind of, venues or whatever. You would think, if they were psychic, at least that would be the basics that they should have known. Well, so we went to all the websites we possibly could, and I did screenshots and archived all their websites. Guess what? Nobody seemed to have predicted it. And I did an article, it's called "They Oddly Did Not See This Coming," and it has screenshots of all the different psychic things that we went to document that they didn't know, they had no idea. And here's Teresa Caputo on the left, and you can see that she's having events canceled. Psychic John Edward, crossing over with John Edward, one of the most, Teresa Caputo and John Edward are some of the most popular or famous psychics right now. They oddly did not see it coming either. They're, as you can see on the John Edward side, he was supposed to be going to Australia, and that got canceled, and he even made new dates. So he picked a date, and then he canceled his first event, and then picked another date in October, and those obviously had to cancel again as well. And I don't know why he didn't seem to know that maybe we would be coming back to some sort of normalcy. On the left hand, you can see this is, I think it's Teresa Caputo, who had a canceled event in Reno. Thomas John, you can see his whole event being canceled over here. He was going to be in Caesar's, he had a show in Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. And the odd thing about Thomas John is we have some screenshots of him back in, I think, February, before the pandemic was a thing. We didn't know it was going to be a thing. And his fans were asking him, how long are you going to be in Vegas? And he says, indefinitely. Well, a couple months later, everything was canceled, and Caesars has not asked him back. So I don't know where he got this indefinitely. At the top of this is Tyler Henry, the Hollywood medium. And again, they say that we'll reschedule when we can reschedule, when we know it's safe. Well, why don't you just tell us, Tyler, when are we going to be able to come back to your shows? How come we don't know that? You don't know that? Well, then what good are you? If these psychics can't predict when we're going to be able to get done with a pandemic, what the heck good are they? I think that's something I've heard Ben Radford say. Another thing that happened during the pandemic is there was a group on Facebook. Now, this is a group that on Facebook that is trying to combat this one psychic whose name is James Higgins. He's in the UK. And James Higgins is a run-of-the-mill, just anybody kind of psychic. He's nothing special, except he's really doing this kind of thing on Facebook. It's just a real aggressive, using like a spam techniques to spam people over and over. And he says, oh, there's a woman in spirit that wants to get a hold of you. I need to hear from you in the next 30 minutes. And so this group has started, and they're trying to combat it. And somebody got a hold of me and said, hey, you're like into psychics and so on, and can you help us out? And I went and I said, well, this guy's nobody, he's just some guy. And yes, he's bilking people out of money, but there's nothing special about him. And I wrote to Barry Carr, who in Skeptical Inquirer World, and I said, can I do an article about this guy? And he says, well, why? There's nothing. He's just just like everybody else, using Facebook to their advantage and all the tools of Facebook, Messenger and so on. And so then I went into their Facebook group that they had on there, and I said to the group, these are people who are combating this one guy, and I said, I'm looking for some screenshots. If somebody could give me some screenshots for this, because I'm going to write an article about it. And within a day, I received a private message from somebody who says they were James Higgins saying, don't you dare write an article about me. I will sue you. And then he followed up with, have a nice day. So I wrote to Barry Carr and also the attorney for Skeptical Inquirer for Center for Inquiry. And I said, hey, this guy says he's going to sue me. And Barry said, well, I guess you got to write an article now. So here's another psychic who didn't see it coming. So I did write an article about him. I didn't have to. I wasn't going to. I was kind of thinking about it. Thomas John is kind of my favorite. He's the psychic who did the show Seatbelt Psychic, where people would get in the back seat of the car and he'd drive them around and he'd give them a reading, and then they'd start crying and they'd filming it. And it had a TV show, and he's done some other things. He's the one that was in Vegas. And Thomas John is just like so easy to bust. He hot reads, and it's so obvious he's hot reading. And I'm going to show a little clip of something here in a minute that kind of might give you an idea of what's going on. But during the pandemic, we're not going to we can't go do anything live, so we revisited some of the things that happened that we just hadn't had time to revisit. And because we're crowdsourced, because we can operate on a group in Facebook, and we can talk to each other over Zoom or other ways, we're able to break things down into smaller bits. And so it's not just me doing all the work. I have people who are helping me. But one of the things we noticed with Thomas John is that he would be giving a reading to somebody, and he's talking to him. And then he would look down into the right-hand corner, or he'd close his eyes, or he would look down at the right-hand corner of his screen. And then he'd immediately look back up and he'd make some very specific statement, like, who's Joanne? And it would be like their mom or their dad or their child that had died. It was always like a very quick statement. So we noticed this because we followed his career for a while. And we haven't done this, but we could do this, take a bunch of his clips of him doing that, where he looks down always in the right-hand corner of the screen and then pops back up with something. And I'm going to show you a really quick clip. This is like 30 seconds long, and it's kind of grainy. So here, let's hopefully you can hear it.
I do feel, and I'm getting a little sense of your dad. So again, we'll see where that goes and stuff. I feel like I'll probably be able to give you at least some validation. I mean, they're telling me that would be very helpful for you. So I would like to be able to do that. I'm just kind of in that more psychic mind. I definitely feel the last couple years for you have been really challenging. And I feel like they're telling me that just things have been very, very challenging. Hold on.
Yes.
Kyle, do you know John in spirit?
Yeah, that's my dad.
Okay.
Great. So we've got all kinds of videos, clips like that, where of Thomas John taking a quick little peek at the, come on now. There we go. We have a whole bunch of video clips of him taking a little peek. And now I'm not saying that he's peeking, but it sure darn well looks like he's peeking. And when you see a whole bunch of these clips in a row, you kind of really feel that's what's happening. Now, what happens if you're looking at your computer screen, which you guys are probably doing right now, in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, what's there? One of the things that can pop up easily is your Messenger app. So if you have Messenger on your computer and somebody's sending you a message, right there, you're going to get a little box that pops up in the lower right-hand corner. So if somebody was feeding him information, I mean, if I was doing this, that's how I would do it. I would have somebody looking up people online while I was doing the reading and just doing some kind of patter, blah, blah, blah. As I see your life is stressful. You don't know what's going to happen in your life. Things are really scary right now. Well, duh, we're in a pandemic, right? This is even before we had the vaccine. So it was even scarier. So while I'm having this little chit chat with this guy, wasting a few minutes at a time, he could be his friend could be off looking the guy up on Facebook and then come back and say his name is John, and then I take a quick glance into the corner of my screen and there is John. Ask who's John. And then you say, who's John? Oh, that's my dad. Oh, wow. Yeah, because I knew it was John because John was just telling me it was, you know. So I'm not saying that's exactly what he's doing. I'm just saying that's what I would do. So another thing that we did during the pandemic is my team and I, we would go and we would attend these different events that Thomas John and his friends would do. And because they're doing it on Zoom, like we are, they would have maybe 300 people on a Zoom call. It's pretty easy to, in real time, I can blend in, change my name on my screen, turn my audio off, turn my video off, and boom, I'm just as anonymous as anybody else. And we infiltrated a lot of different groups, and we were able to watch and see how some of these other psychic mediums do their thing. So I went back and I did do some other investigation my team did. We went back to even the old videos before, yes, Dave, did you have a question?
What was the Operation Lemon Meringue?
Oh, that was it. Operation Lemon Meringue was all these investigations we did into the different Zoom events that he did with his friends.
Okay, all right.
And they're all on my website. I think we did 6 articles, something like that. So there's all kinds.
So that was the code name, or what?
Yeah, Operation Lemon Meringue. So
Ben's hungry.
all of our operations are Operation something something, and they're food related, except for the very first one we did when we didn't know this was going to become a thing. So we went back during the pandemic, and again, we broke it down into little manageable bits, and we looked at his show, which was called Seatbelt Psychic. And this is before I got involved. I'd never heard of him before. And so the idea is that he's supposed to be like an Uber driver. And, and you get in the car and he drives you to your destination. And while he's driving you to your destination, you get this reading, and it's very personal, and you're crying and so on. It's supposed to look like a ride share. But what we noticed in the first articles I was doing before the pandemic was that there's no time that you get into the car and you put your seatbelt on in the back seat. He never says, oh, am I driving you to the airport? And then puts some information into the little, iPhone or whatever that's up on his dash. He never says any of that. It's never confirming anything like you would in a normal ride share. Oh, and your name is Louise, and I'm taking you to a zoo, right? Or they never had bags. They never had any kind of clothing with any kind of writing on it, no Nike swooshes, no hats, sports hats or anything like that. They always looked like they were dressed to be on TV. The other thing we noticed is there were so many cameras on these people, lots of angles of cameras. Now I know you can hide a camera in a car, but I got the feeling that these weren't hidden cameras. And lo and behold, we find out that these are not hidden cameras. So like somebody's walking up to the car, there's this giant camera mounted to the car. We find that out in a later episode where he shows how he films these things. And I interviewed somebody who was in the back seat of the car. So we were able to get a lot of information. I mean, if you're walking up to a ride share that you called to take you to the airport, are you going to walk up to something that's got multiple cameras all over on the roof, no. Or at least when you sat down in the car, you're going to say, what the heck is this? You're not going to be like, hi, how's your day? Of course not. So we took the videos on YouTube and we turned off the sound, and we just watched the videos and did screen captures every few seconds out of the things you see out of the back window and out of the driver's side. And what we were able to do with these videos, these captures, is we could see that they were on a loop. He was driving a set loop, and his clothes would change. So we expect they were changed. They were the different days. If I go back to this one, you'll see these are, I think, 3 different women all being picked up in the same location. We were able to figure out where the location was by some of the writing on the buildings, and it's in North Hollywood. And we could see that here he is, he's going NoHo 7. It's a movie theater, I believe, in North Hollywood. And he's on a loop. We know he's going only on the right lane, the side closest to the sidewalk, and always in a right-hand circle. So it was a circle always going to the right. So we wrote an article about it. Here's where they're dropping them off all at the same location. So that's another thing that we did during the pandemic is we were able to pinpoint where he was picking people up and dropping them off. There was no ride share. And I mean, that was obvious from the beginning, but we made it, we put a pin in it to make it as more obvious, or as I would say, we put a fork in it because we were done with him. Okay, so I think I'm done. There's a lot more we did about the psychics, but I'm going to just really quickly talk about my other project, which is the Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia project. And this is a volunteer group of people that I've trained to become amazing Wikipedia editors. They didn't have to have any experience ahead of time. They just had to have some time. They had to be able to, follow directions and take feedback well. It takes about 2 to 4 months to go through my training. We use Google Documents, and everything happens in our Facebook group, which is a private hidden group called the Secret Cabal. And all the training and all the mentoring goes on there. I have about 100 people all over the world right now who are editing Wikipedia pages for me. And those people were writing in lots of languages besides English, because it's really important that we get the information out there besides English. Now I'm going to pass through a few slides that at random, because I just wanted, for time's sake, I'm just going to pass these over really quick. And yeah, okay, so sorry guys. And talk about the Wikipedia angle. So some of the pages we have written, we've written just over 2,000 pages. I think we're at 2,025 pages. We've been around a little over 10 years. And I'm going to show you some New Mexico related pages just because it's fun, So I think, I'm not sure. I think these are pages I wrote myself. I can't quite remember. So here's 4 pages that we've written. Oh, this one I just wrote. This has nothing to do with New Mexico. This is the Gulf Breeze UFO incident. This is the last page I just wrote. And every time you write a Wikipedia page or you turn it from a stub, awful page into something really nice, you fall in love with it. I can't help it. It's just, you just really get into it. I've written lots of 50 pages or so. And this is when I'd never heard of this Gulf Breeze incident that happened in Gulf Breeze, Florida. But apparently I put it up on Facebook and people were like, oh my gosh, yes, I remember that one very clearly. And it's a case study of the whole, from the beginning, 1987 to, 20 years or 30 years later, and how the whole phenomenon of the UFO movement and in watching the MUFON people and the skeptics and Philip Klass and all, it just was so interesting. Just one little case study. Ben, you should have this on Screening the Strange. It was really interesting. And just seeing how the groups, how they bought into it and how the skeptic community, or I should say the UFO community, even whenever they sent their best investigators in to look at this Gulf Breeze incident, they came back, some of them saying, yeah, it's fake. It was fake. Those are fake photos. And then they'd be ostracized and kicked out of the group. And Robert Schaefer, one of our UFO experts, he says, well, they're making money off of this. Obviously, their numbers went way up in the membership numbers. So why would they want to be skeptical about something like this? And you could see that in the writings. Anyway, that's the one I just finished. And I wanted to talk about it because, when we do that, it's like, oh my gosh, I got to tell everybody about this interesting thing I just did. So this is a Wikipedia page. I think I wrote it. I can't remember. But this is Ben Radford's book, Mysterious New Mexico. I adored this book, not only just the cover of it, but I just adored the book. The stories about New Mexico make me really want to come out and visit you guys again. So, and give a talk again and hang out with you. And there's the theater, KIMO theater that I'm dying to go and actually visit. That when I was back in Albuquerque with you guys a few years ago, it was closed and I couldn't go in, but really interesting book. So we wrote the Wikipedia page for this. Another one we wrote was for your group, New Mexicans for Science and Reason. I can't remember if I wrote this one or somebody else did. I can't quite remember. Mark Boslow, another member of your group. We've written that Wikipedia page as well. Or I shouldn't say we wrote it necessarily. We rewrote it from a stub. You know, it wasn't great quality, so we rewrote it. Hold on, Dave. And then here's the next one. Dave Thomas, look, I know this guy. Where do I know him from? Here's another page. It's actually gone through 2 rewrites now. I think it was rewritten. And then as our team had more skill, they rewrote it once again. So those are just 4 pages chosen at random, like 15 minutes before the talk today, because I thought I'd have something to show you guys. And those 4, oops, I should mention. So if you take, we have a way of evaluating how many times a Wikipedia page has been viewed. Now, we can't tell if the person has been on there and just got off in a second, or if it's the same person going there every time, or if it's one person reading the whole page from top to bottom. We don't know. All we know is how many times that Wikipedia page has been accessed. And we know that those 4 pages together have been viewed, I had it written down here, 55,000 times between the 4 of those Wikipedia pages since we made them, you know, whole, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, 58,838,000 times. So 58,000, almost 59,000. Well, let's round it up. 60,000 times. Joy, you're 100,000. No. 60,000 times those 4 Wikipedia pages have been viewed. So that's always kind of fun to have that little bit of number. And I told you earlier that we have written just over 2,000 pages. We've written 2,025 pages. 45% of everything we write is in languages other than English. And we keep track of those 2,025 pages just to see how many times they've been viewed. As I said, you know, we have to have a way of measuring how we're doing. And those 2,025 pages have just hit 111 million page views, 111,778,458 page views. We're getting a week about 300,000 page views. So that's an awful lot of information we're giving to people all over the world. We've written a lot on vaccines. I think there were over 5 million page views for anything that has to do with vaccines. That means of anti-vax world, Robert Kennedy Jr.'s group, Children's Health Defense, I think it's called. We wrote the Wikipedia page for that. We try to translate them into other languages so that they get really great information from that as also. And I'll leave you here with my website for a moment. So if you wanted to take a screen capture or jot down the name of this, but all the articles that I have written are on the abouttimeproject.org website. Again, we're a nonprofit, and I will be doing some touring through America here really soon. I'm going to be hitting up, I'm going to be receiving an award, the Philip Klass Award from the Capital Area Skeptics in Washington, D.C. in late April. So I'll be there in Washington, D.C. Then I'm going to go down and see the Triangle Skeptics in North Carolina. Then I'm going to go over to Buffalo, New York to CFI and give them a talk. And then I'm going to be coming closer to California, and I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to go. It looks like I'm going to be in St. Louis and Denver, and then come on home. I'm trying to work that out, but it's going to be in the next few weeks. So I guess I got to work it out quick. But anyway, that's my talk and what I did. That's what I did during the pandemic. So I hope you have some questions for me. I did kind of do that fast, so I'm sorry if I went too fast. Ta-da!
That was fine. I did raise my hand because I had a question.
Okay, go ahead, Dave. Give me your best shot.
Yeah, I just checked, and so there is a Wikipedia page on Indiana's slice of pie when they had a legislation to make pi equal to 3.0. But that's the only mention of Alabama pie, sort of tangentially on that article. And so I would like to, huh?
Doesn't the Dave Thomas page have a mention of the pie on there?
It might have a mention, but I think Alabama pie should have its own webpage. And last year, Mark Boslow actually read the whole article that kicked it off. So that's part of a longer video. But what I propose is to just put Mark's talk as a standalone YouTube video. And if I did that, do you think maybe you or Rob could help create Alabama Pine's own page? Because we, were recognized by Jeopardy last year, and I've got some, screen captures of Good Morning America mentioning it, and
Well, now if you've got Good Morning America and Jeopardy on it, that's more likely. I see that Rob Palmer, one of our
GSOW people,
editors
yeah.
here supposedly is just joined the group. So to prove, and this is a really good question. We get this often where people say, "Can't we write a Wikipedia page about XYZ?" And to pass notability standards on Wikipedia is extremely difficult nowadays. It's really hard. You have to have really well done citations from places outside of the person or the group or the thing or whatever. So, Jeopardy, that would be interesting. Good Morning America, yes, that's a plus. It's really hard to do. So maybe, I don't know. I'll let Rob look into it because that's Rob's thing.
Okay.
I'm working on UFO pages right now.
So
I'm about to
Rob,
go to tour, so I'll use that as my excuse. So Rob.
if you have any questions about that, I'd like to, see that move
This
forward.
is Dave. So, Dave, you talked to Rob.
We met at I think the Psychon convention. Yeah.
We have talked. I don't remember if it was there, but several times. I know I was in contact with you when I wrote, let's see, the Hale the Hale
Bop, yeah, or Alan Hale, yeah.
Yeah. So my email is thewellknownskeptic@gmail.com. Write me with whatever information you have. I'll look at it.
There you go.
Great. Okay.
We'll add it and we'll make it 2026 pages.
So thewellknownskeptic@gmail.com.
Correct.
Excellent. Thanks, Rob.
He's getting flooded with emails now. Other questions? Ben, I know you got like 50,000. Did I just plagiarize you completely, Ben? Because I've been listening to Ben for so many years that I have all sorts of information that I just pull from him. Just it falls out of his hair. That's why he has no hair. The follicles it just falls out, and then I pick it up off the ground.
Hey, watch it. Don't talk about baldness or you might get slapped.
Oh, and Rob mentioned also, not only during the pandemic have we've been working on Wikipedia pages and working on these psychic event things, but we have been active, just trying to keep the community active and talking to each other. We play trivia every Thursday night, and we've just had our 101 games that we've played of trivia, and it's about 30-40 people that end up coming together, and we meet over Zoom, and it's a social thing. And another thing we've been doing is we have Monterey County Skeptics. We've put on two Zoom conferences, day-long conferences, and I've also been participating in the Bay Area, California Bay Area Skeptics have been putting on a conference, and we'll have one coming up here really soon in July that is going to be all virtual. Randy, you have a question?
Yeah, Susan. Mark Boslow led an effort by a small group of us to get out scientific information about the pandemic. He does this somewhat through Facebook, but we also tried to use Nextdoor, which is a site that neighborhoods are organized kind of arbitrarily, and we basically ended up banned from Nextdoor because we found that scientific information was disputed and deemed to be political. If you said anything about whether a state followed Democratic or Republican guidelines, you were immediately causing problems and not a team player and hateful and on and on and on. And eventually we got banned.
Yeah.
So I wondered if you had experiences like this where the material that you were adding or the material, if you were editing other web pages, that you ended up in these kind of flame wars back and forth.
That's a really good question. Nextdoor is a really great site. We used it here in California, to find lost pets or to let you know they're having a garage sale this week, or, just somebody recommend a mechanic. And I mean, I could see it from the perspective, whenever we try to use something like that, just think about what it would sound like if it was somebody from the MAGA world trying to do something of the sort. It's obviously sounds like you have an agenda. I think it's a great idea, but maybe it was a little too forceful. I think I remember when Mark was doing that at the beginning of the pandemic, and it did seem like I could see how it would cause problems. I don't know if maybe a more subtle strategy, or maybe say, hey, we're having a virtual talk on this subject that you guys might be interested in, and we're going to have an expert come in and talk about it or something. And that's,
Well, that was kind of the initial
yeah.
approach.
Well, I think he
Well,
was
you don't
using
have to
good-
imagine what
Yeah.
happens if the MAGA people come in and do this,
Oh,
because
yeah.
they do.
Yeah, that's true.
There are
And it's-
very, very strong Republican groups online. And what we found
yeah,
is that the system is run by neighborhood leads.
mhm.
And we found that the neighborhoods have essentially, the leads are all right wing now. And so if you say anything that they don't like, they ban you.
Right.
And next
just-
door corporate is not the least bit of help.
No, I mean, we ran into this a lot too when we were trying to get things canceled that the psychics were doing. One of the things I didn't talk about was Operation Onion Ring, which is where Thomas John was doing a readings to 5-year-olds to 12-year-olds and telling them about their dead people and blah, blah, blah. We were trying to get that canceled off of, trying to get Zoom, or trying to get the place that was hosting his, taking the money to cancel. And they don't want to hear it. We're just Zoom. We're not responsible for the information. The only way you can really do it is to kind of get the media on your side and pressure them. So there's a lot of ways. They're great efforts. We try, and we find out that they're not going to work out. But now going back to Wikipedia and the question you asked, which was, do we run into flame wars and so on? We very rarely run into flame wars or anything of the sort, because when I teach my team how to write Wikipedia pages, we're really trying to write them correctly, really neutrally. But obviously, when it's a topic that has to do with fringe, the paranormal world, there are different rules for Wikipedia if it's a fringe topic, because the scientific consensus is the rule of Wikipedia. They're very skeptical. They don't allow any of that nonsense stuff and those weasel words or giving both sides. It's not allowed on Wikipedia. It's truly a skeptical side, a skeptical place, if it's done correctly. We've had things where we've encountered that are problematic, and Rob got into something with Havana syndrome. For a very long time, we were trying to get the lead of the Wikipedia page to say something about that it was, what's the words, Rob? Somatic, what is it?
Mass psychogenic illness.
Mass psychogenic illness put on the Wikipedia page in the beginning, in the lead, which is the thing that most people read. And we got into a big flame war, and it was a problem, and it led into a lot of other stuff. But now, from what I understand, the Wikipedia page is starting to reflect more of the scientific consensus. One of the problems is that JAMA, Journal for American Medical Association, had done kind of endorsed the Havana syndrome as a real medical thing. And when you have something replicable like that, then all the Wikipedia editors said, well, we got to use JAMA, and JAMA is saying this is a real thing. So we've got to, and it was a mess. And eventually I think it's gotten fixed, and it's going to end up getting better and better. But my team, I teach them not to, what is it I say? I say, this is not the hill to die on. We don't want you banned from Wikipedia. We don't want you flame warred. I don't want your stress to go up. So we usually back away from fights, because the things you're fighting for are just like insignificant. Like, I want it worded this way. And somebody else says, no, you can't. And you're like, well, let's just remove the sentence, and then it's gone. And then we back away, they back away, and then maybe we can come back in and add it later, or so on. But we try to see it from their point of view. If they have a fringe agenda, well then, okay, we're going to have to fight that a little bit stronger. But if it's just, you're being too mean, or there's rules for people who have biographies that are living people. There's stronger rules, because you could be harming their reputation. You could be harming their ability to make money and so on. So you have to go with the rules, but no, for the most part, we don't have any problem, very little problems. And I mean, the Havana syndrome, when I finished a few days ago, I think I've had somebody come in and change some of the spelling a little bit, but nobody's messing with it. It's really not.
And
as
not
big as
Havana
you think.
syndrome. Do you mean, did you misspeak there?
No, I meant I'm sorry, the Gulf Breeze UFO. We've had very little pushback. I think I said somebody just misspelled, fixed a couple spelling errors I had, but mostly you're not going to have problems because the rules of Wikipedia are the rules of skepticism, organized scientific skepticism.
Havana syndrome was kind of a special case, and as I mentioned before in my writing, I feel like I'm wearing the tinfoil hat when I have to, give the skeptic angle, because as you mentioned, JAMA represents a scientific consensus. The government is all in on it. The current CIA director says, yeah, it's a real thing. We're trying to figure it out. And here comes Robert Bartholomew and a few other fringe freaks, according to the people who edit the Wikipedia page for Havana syndrome, that should keep their mouths shut because they're not medical doctors and they don't know what they're talking about. So
Yeah.
it's been a real, a stressor for as long as this has been going on.
But we're
I rewrote
hopefully
that
it's gonna
page.
get changed. Yeah.
2017. Yeah, when it first started, and I made it very skeptical, but quickly other editors latched on because it was always in the news, and all of the news stories were about this is real. We're trying to figure it out, and it got more and more and more of that kind of content on it and references, to the point where the psychogenic illness hypothesis was extremely minimalized. They took it out of the lead. The block on top, which says what's causing this, it said either microwave or sonic. It had gone to that, but we kept fighting the battle, and now at least we've gotten it where it says unknown reason.
Yeah, so it's
And the psychogenic
improving
section
slowly
is
as
larger.
the citations outside of Wikipedia are getting better and more skeptical. The page can evolve. So I think it's going to be just a matter of time, but that was a battle for quite a while. Other questions? I hope I answered that for you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I was just looking in the chat. I didn't see anything.
Okay, well, I've got one little demo just to show in my class. I bring in little physics demos,
Okay, great.
and during the pandemic, we were online, so I figured out. So I made some websites to do ESP testing over the internet. We used to get the cards, the good old your famous
ESP cards.
yeah, the Zener
Inner
cards.
cards. We wrote
And,
that
and we would
Wikipedia page
have the
with it.
worksheets, and the students would test each other in class. But then so I developed a website where the whole class could go on in groups of two, and basically, it's not one web page, it's 20 web pages where, the URLs separate sender and receiver. So that was pretty successful, and I worked out the Monty Hall challenge. But I'm going to show one video of the wacky magnet drop that Dennis Lee, the perpetual motion guy, now he's into sort of HMO scams, but good old Dennis Lee demonstrated this wacky magnet. So here it is for the science group. So here I've got the amazing magnet drop.
It's not moving on our end.
It's not. It says it's paused. I wonder why. I'm gonna just try it again. I don't know why it got paused there. Okay. And play. And aluminum is not ferromagnetic, but it is a conductor. So if you have a magnet dropping inside, that's going to stir up magnetic fields, create eddy currents, which are going to slow down the magnet. So observe. Man, that takes a long time. One more. And just for comparison, let's drop a penny. Whew. And it, of course, falls at normal gravity. And our last one is to look straight down. There we go. And here we go. Beep. And there you have it.
Wow.
The amazing magnet drop. Alrighty.
I think those are really great things to show students. We
Yeah.
really need to get more of that kind of thing in the
And-
schools for younger and younger ages.
And this semester, right now, it's I still have about 50% of the students on Zoom and 50% in the real classroom. So we when I did a unit on genetic algorithms, and the students participate in a genetic algorithm where they just guess kind of numbers, and there's X's and Y's. So I had the in-class people be the X's and the Zoom people were the Y's, and that worked out pretty well.
Dave, a question.
Yes.
I noticed that the thickness of the tube is very thick. The wall thickness is very thick. Have you done any experiments on? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Oh, thicker is better. And actually, if you happen to have a gold tube, that would be even better. So if you do, I'd like to borrow it.
Gold or silver?
Well, that would work too. Yeah.
I
May
better-
not get it back though.
I
huh?
better
think gold will not
conductivity.
work as well as silver.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Well, that was certainly inspiring talk. I'm going to certainly head over to
AboutTimeProject.org.
abouttimeproject.org.
If you look on the
And,
left-hand side,
check
you'll
out
see where it
those-
says grief vampires, I think is what it's, and that's where I have all the articles about all the different things. We've got, probably 50 articles in there that have to do with the psychic world. But this time I was just narrowing down to some of the things that we've actually written, during the pandemic, what we're doing. We found that they're taking advantage of Zoom. So we started taking advantage of Zoom.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for agreeing to talk on short notice.
No
And
problem.
we did have Nicholas Lamar Suter lined up, but he got clobbered by the COVID. So I hope he's recovering. He was vaccinated and all, but there are breakthrough cases.
Yeah.
I had one, as did the wife.
No.
But I
Yeah.
got my second booster, so
I just got my
Uh,
second booster a
yeah.
week ago because I know I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling. So I wanted to be
Yep.
as safe as I possibly. Yeah.
there you
got
go.
it.
I was
Got it.
going to get my second booster the day it was available, and then I read a New York Times article, which was then confirmed about a week later by the New Jersey Department of Health, that says if you've had your booster and you had COVID in the last 2 months, you don't get the second booster yet. You shouldn't. get
Huh.
it.
Because it's like having the booster,
Yeah, right. That's what they're saying. Then you should wait a little longer to do it.
then get your booster. So then it'd be like having 5 doses kind of.
Yeah.
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 The science is still changing. We don't really know everything yet, but all I know is that I took my vaccine seriously and I got it. We went in and made appointments of almost the first day that they said we could get our second. I'm like, I'm over 50. give me here, give it to me.
I think one of the most effective arguments for vaccines, they're not super perfect. People can still catch COVID, sometimes even die, but they're like seatbelts.
Mhm.
If you wear your seatbelt, you have a whole lot better chance of surviving that collision. Just
Absolutely.
like you have a lot better chance of surviving if
Yeah.
COVID if you've trained your immune system to clobber it when it shows up.
Yeah. And if you wear your seatbelt, you're vaccinated, you're more likely to take it seriously and not maybe mingle with people who are unvaccinated so much, or, hang out with people and
Yeah.
breathe on them. Let people breathe on you so much. But anyway, all right. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Well, thanks so much, Susan.
Let me know when the video's up, and hello again
Yeah,
to
it'll be
everybody.
probably about the weekend or so, but
And,
I'll get cracking
future. Get cracking.
on
007.
the getting Boslow's reading of Alabama Pie posted. So
Yeah, over to
we
Rod.
got some more
Yeah, I'll
momentum.
look for your email. I mean,
I'll
I can't,
give you an
I can't
honest
promise
opinion.
anything because as Susan mentioned, we have to examine whether or not Wikipedia is
I'll
gonna-
give you what we got. I mean, we
Yeah,
made
whatever.
Tops and Gunter top internet pranks of all time.
We have tons of pages that are just sitting there waiting for their moment to finally get over the fence.
Waiting
They're
for
like on the
relevance.
fence.
Okay. Wow.
We get
Plus
Okay,
Penny
well,
Biddle. Don't forget Penny
best
Biddle.
we can do is get you that info and see if
Yeah.
anybody salutes.
All right.
Very good.
Thank
Well,
you,
thanks
guys.
for coming, everybody.
Thank you all.
Stay safe, and we'll see you next month.
Take care.
All right. Take care.